Issue now, increasing tensions with Iran. The United States is now moving to protect the shipping lanes in the Persian Gulf.
The US is trying to drum up support to safeguard shipping around Iran and Yemen. It's proposed a military coalition of nations to help patrol the Gulf and regional straits through which 1/5 of the world's oil passes.
We're engaging now with a number of countries to see if we can put together a coalition that would ensure freedom of navigation both in the Straits of Hormuz and the Bab el-Mandab.
The US may find allies after blaming Iran for recent attacks against oil tankers in Gulf waters. And Iran admitted shooting down a US surveillance drone near the Straits. The US wants to station command ships in the region and lead surveillance, as allies patrol the waters and escort commercial vehicles.
And so these moves are designed to mitigate Iranian aggression. They are part of the U.S. response, which included cyber attacks of some kind on the Iranian regime. But what kind of cyber attacks and at what targets? Joining me now from our bureau in Washington, D.C., cybersecurity expert and former CIA analyst, Eric Cole, Ph.D. Eric, we are at war with Iran. The United States is at war with Iran, only it's a war that 99.9% of Americans can't see or hear or taste or smell.
That is 100% correct. Most people, when they think of warfare, they think of bombs and buildings getting exploded. But in reality, our computers, our information is being compromised. And it's not just government computers, it's individual computers.
And so we have this report out of Forbes, which caught my eye today. And the headline is pretty telling. Iran launches new military command and control unit to withstand U.S. cyber attack. Now, on the surface, you might say, well, Iran is just bolstering its military stance and trying to reinforce its infrastructure. But if you read between the lines, this tells me that the United States may have done some sort of significant damage in this cyber attack to the Iranian regime.
Yes, our attacks have been very successful. If you remember a few weeks ago, the United States was ready to launch a physical attack against Iran, and at the last moment we pulled back because of civilian casualties, and immediately within minutes, cyber attacks were launched to basically take down their communication, their command and control systems, and these reports are proof that we were successful, and they're trying now to set up enough redundancy to make it more difficult for us in the future.
Now, of course, we've had a long history of limited military conflict with the Iranian regime, the radical Iranian regime, most notably in the 1980s with Ronald Reagan. He put down essentially the Iranian Navy. So we know what a conventional war or conflict, limited conflict, looks like. It involves military aircraft, or it involves the United States Navy. It involves RPGs now, different kinds of conventional weapons. Well, what does a cyber war look like? What is in the United States government arsenal to inflict damage via cyber war?
Well, there's many different types. There's direct cyber attacks in which we can go in and take control of their computers and covertly monitor everything they're saying and everything they're doing. So now we essentially can understand what their strategies, what their activity is. We can get a little more active where we actually go in and take down computer systems. And then you can have hybrid attacks. If you remember about 6 years ago, Stuxnet, where we basically put malicious code in nuclear reactors in Iran and caused them to overclock and basically caused their reactors to essentially explode and no longer work correctly. So there can be a lot of hybrid attacks where computers are used to also do physical damage.
So these would be government targets, military targets the United States would be looking for, and targets that are probably identified well in advance?
Yes and no. With computers, it's very easy to move around the system. So the general target that we want to go after, command and control systems, we want to go after military systems, that is known. But the specific address or location, because a lot of these devices are mobile, those are typically determined at the final moments before an attack and then are launched very quickly before they can change or move addresses on the internet.
So initially it starts as a laser strike, if you will, but it could spread like a virus and infect other computers, maybe even in Iran beyond their military or their government?
Exactly. We typically, with cyber warfare, We prefer more of the former, where we're doing a very strategic attack because we can control it, we can monitor it. As we've seen in the United States with various forms of malware, viruses, and worms, if we release something like that, it can get out of control very quickly and cause a lot more damage and cause a lot more problems than we anticipated.
Scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being worst, how vulnerable is the United States to these kinds of attacks from someone who knows what they're doing?
14.
And so it's long overdue, really, that the United States government looks at this, among other things like an attack from an electromagnetic pulse. These are the kinds of warfare that we might be fighting and might be crippling to our economy and the way we live.
Exactly. We all drive our cars and go to restaurants, but we never step back and realize the infrastructure of the United States, our information and our critical data, is all on computers, and most of these computers are directly or indirectly accessible from the internet and are very, very exposed. So if somebody wanted to launch an attack, unfortunately, it would be a lot easier than we would like and prefer.
Right. I mean, think about it. Everything from your smart refrigerator, your smart television in your home, to your car could be crippled from this kind of attack. It's a new phase of war, if you will. It's silent, but it can be indeed deadly. Eric, thank you.